So in the past, I've talked about how I've utilized a small projector in my home for a minimal home theater setup. I don't own any of the flat screen style TVs in my house. I just have that little tube TV that I use with my VCR sometimes. But when I do want to have a large screen experience without having a large screen in my home, I utilize my projector. Today, I want to talk a little bit more in detail about the projector setups that I've used over the past couple of years, as well as an exciting new option that I've been testing over the last month. Now, there's many different ways in which you could approach a minimal home theater setup, and I'm just going to show you how I like to do it. If you don't know me, I'm Spencer, and I like to talk about simple living, frugality, and ways to cut down on your technology usage, sometimes by using other technologies. Let's get into it. So quickly, I'll just speak to why I love using a projector in my home so much. I try to be pretty intentional with the media that I consume, and sometimes that means putting a little barrier between me and consuming that media, creating a sense of meaningful friction in my processes, so to make consuming technology a little bit more of an active act rather than a passive one. Having a projector setup that needs to be set up every time I want to watch something on it, it makes me have a little bit of a time to stop and think, is this something that I really want to take the time to do? Is this media worth it for me? By doing this, I find that I don't just watch so many random things just as a way to fill time, and I end up being a little bit more intentional and choosing things because I actually want to watch them instead. And oftentimes that means I watch things less. Because I don't have a large TV in my room that I can flick on at any time just whenever I feel an ounce of boredom, I find that I find better things to do with my time when I do feel that boredom. Projectors obviously also work better in dark rooms, so by using a projector, I've limited my media consumption most of the time until the evenings. And lastly, it's just nice to give that big screen treatment to certain movies when you want to feel that scale of the film. I love going to the movie theater and seeing a movie there as much as I can, but when I want to watch something at home, it's nice to have that large screen treatment if I want to, rather than just having to watch it on a laptop or something even smaller. So let's get into the setups that I've used in the past, the present, and what I'm going to be moving forward with into the future. I've had 3 different projectors in my life so far, and they all cover different budget ranges, and they have pros and cons, and I'm going to get into all of those right now. I'll mention the exact names of each device here, as well as link that exact device or a very similar one if it's no longer available in the description. All right, so the first projector that I ever got was this one right here. And this is the extreme budget option. This thing is called the QKK. I don't think this model particularly is still available on Amazon, but there's tons of similar options out there that are pretty much, I would say, just as good. The pros of this thing is that it is a projector and that it is cheap. It was $90 out the door for this thing, and it came with a screen included. At the time, I really just didn't have a budget for anything better, but I still didn't really want a TV of any size in my apartment. So having this and then being able to set up the screen whenever I wanted to watch something was a better option for me, and it was cheap to get into, which I appreciated. Now, it's not the highest quality projector out there by any stretch. It doesn't really excel at anything particularly. I think it's like 480p the picture, and the speakers that are built into it, they're not very good, so I usually would attach some other speaker solution to it as well. But for 90 bucks, you can't really ask for much else, I would say. It has a VGA port, it has an HDMI in, it has 2 USB ports, it has an SD card slot, a headphone jack, and an AV in as well. Most of the time with this projector, I would use the HDMI to connect my laptop to it, or in the past, something like the Amazon Fire Stick. But it also has a USB port on the side too, so if you have a thumb drive or a hard drive with your media on it, you can connect it that way and then just play it off of the projector. That was a great option for me, and if you're looking to get into the projector game on a very tight budget, that's something which you could consider. The second projector that I got is this, the Apeman M4S, which is a nice little projector priced at around $200 Canadian. It's a pretty bright and sharp little projector, and as you can see, it's very small. The biggest pro about this thing is its size. It also has a built-in battery which lasts about 2 hours of continuous playtime, but you can also connect it via USB if you want to power it like that as well. Now, the main con which I found by having this Apeman here was that its size was often negated by the need to add many peripherals to it. This thing is a very stripped down, simple little projector. It doesn't really have anything in the way of menus. You can adjust the keystone, the focus, and the brightness, and that's pretty much all you can do with it. Because it doesn't have any sort of smart features built into it, I have to connect my laptop in order to get picture into it. And then the speakers in it are not very good. I would call them abysmal. They kind of sound like headphones that aren't actually on your head. They sound like they're far away, and they're pretty tinny at that. So it's kind of a downer to have such a small device like this, but then having to add a computer and a separate set of speakers just to get the sound and picture quality that you desire. It kind of negates the small aspect of this, and it's not too minimal either. Recently though, I've I've been using this projector, the AURZEN Boom 3. A couple of months ago, the company AURZEN reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to test out this projector and provide my feedback on it. So they sent out a Boom 3 to me, and I have to say that this thing has become my go-to for watching movies now. As you can see, this thing's a little bit heftier than the other projectors I mentioned, but I'm okay with that. The reason why is that the AURZEN really fixes a lot of the problems that I mentioned with the Apeman M4S and the previous projector as well, and that I don't need to add any peripherals, and it also comes with a huge boost in visual quality as well. Now this thing has all of the features that you would expect in a high-end projector, like auto keystone correct and autofocus. It has all the ports that you would want, like USB and HDMI. But two things that really set it apart from the other projectors I mentioned is the fact that it is a smart projector. It has apps built in. If you're still using streaming services like Netflix or Amazon Prime, you're going to find those built into the AURZEN, and there's actually buttons on the remote to access those apps immediately. YouTube is also built in and is also accessible from the remote directly. But for those of us who like to own our media, the game changer with the AURZEN is that it comes pre-installed with Plex. Having Plex on here completely eliminates the need for me to connect my laptop in order to access my media when using this projector. But the kicker with the Boom 3 is the sound. This thing has a giant set of speakers built right into the back. These speakers sound really, really good, unlike any projector I've ever owned, and even unlike any Bluetooth speaker I've ever owned.
I love bombs.
Having Plex on there with the ability to access all of my media remotely while also having such a large speaker built into the AURZEN, it means that I don't have to connect anything else but just plug the projector into the wall. So now when I watch movies with my projector, there's no more need to make space for a laptop or a speaker setup and a power bar to run it all. So far I've had nothing but good things to say about this projector. If I was going to mention any cons, I guess it would just be the size. It's clearly a lot bigger than any of the other projectors, but I do think that the pros and not having to connect anything else, having the smart features built right in to access my media via Plex, it outweighs the cons of the size. I think the size is not really a big deal, especially if you don't plan on really bringing this with you places and you just use it around your house. This is the perfect way to go. So the AURZEN is clearly the highest end projector I've had, but it's actually a pretty good price. I think it's $499 Canadian, but they also have a $190 coupon for it, which really puts it into the category of the Apeman with that discount, but it's a way more capable device. The Apeman is something that I could still use if I want to travel and I want to bring a projector with me because it's so small it can easily fit into a bag. The projector that I mentioned first, I would really only recommend it if you don't have the budget to get anything else. It's still a really good device for what it is, but it just doesn't hold up compared to the other two options that I've got now. So that just about wraps it up for today, folks. Just a few different examples of how I handle my minimalist home theater setup and 3 different projector options to get you started. I think depending on your budget and your needs, like if you want a pocketable projector that you can travel with, there's an argument for all 3 of these devices. But for me, I'm going to keep using the AURZEN around the house as my number 1. I do want to say a quick thank you to AURZEN for providing me the projector for this video. I really appreciate them working with me on this. Let me know what you guys thought of this video in the comments section, and let me know what your movie setup is at home. I'd be happy to hear from you. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.